Hi, good day, and welcome to another episode of Macklaw. Riaan van Wyk, a jurist and a legal enthusiast. Hi, Riaan.
Hey, Mac, thanks for having me again. I believe we're talking diamonds today. Let's get straight into
we
it.
are. It comes from my visit to Aggeneys, Northern Cape, beautiful. But what haunts me is the living conditions. Sand blowing, people's houses are not on par, roads are gravel there. But what I found out is that diamonds are mined in the Northern Cape. I never knew that. I never knew that most of the diamonds are mined there. So I want to know, why is the most precious gem mined there, but the people are still living in that condition? And another thing I want to point out is that the Beers, they are planning to leave. After 80 years of mining there, they're planning to leave. Now, is that an advantage for the people of the Northern Cape or a disadvantage?
Yeah, firstly, brilliant question. A lot of issues to deal with. So in order to consolidate it, I think let's start with the legal basis here. Firstly, and very pertinent to your question, let's start with the little great book, the Constitution, as we do every week. The Constitution provides in section 24 that everybody has the right to a clean and healthy environment. And furthermore, and more importantly, that the state has a duty to preserve the environment for present and future generations. Right? But now the crucial constitutional duty that's put on them is found in the very next section in the Constitution, which holds that everybody has the right to property. And nobody should be deprived of property arbitrarily. Now, specifically to this, it says that the public interest, along with equitability, is the foundation on which the government should share property and also, as custodians of our mineral sources, look after it. And it says public interest means what is in the best interest of the nation, and that property is not and by no means limited to land only, but also our natural mineral resources that are found under our earth. Alright? So in order to give effect to that, the Constitution ordered the government to enact legislation, which they did. The legislation is called the Minerals and Resources Development Act. Alright? Now this act, and specifically in section 2, lists a whole lot of objectives that the act actually orders the executive branch of government to implement. So in section 2 and subsection A, number 1, it lists that the state must realize and pay homage to the internationally accepted right that they have to practice sovereignty over all of our minerals. That means that they are the sole controllers of this, but they do it on behalf of us, right? We are the stakeholders and they are the custodians. They look after it, right? So if they go into agreements with companies like De Beers, first thing they should always bear cognizance of is, when you're going to mine here, what are you going to do to this mining community, to the area in which you are? Is it going to be safe for our people, first of all, your mining operations, and the production of, or the profits that you're going to make, what are you going to give back so that the stakeholders can actually get a part of the stake that's actually constitutionally given to them, right? So, in your questions, the Northern Cape is destitute till today, after 80 years of mining. So, disadvantage, advantage, we'll get to that. Secondly, the state has a duty to promote equitable access to all our natural resources to the people of South Africa. Now, access, or equitable access, what does that actually mean practically, you know? Should we each get a diamond? No, it doesn't work that way. So the state has designed and went into agreements with companies like De Beers and Alexcore, X, and whatever the case may be, so that when they do mine and properly sell the products that they're getting out of it, in fact our products, which we have now agreed for them to mine by giving them mining rights, they have to give between 1% and 3% back to the communities in which they're actually mining these raw products or minerals, right? So the question, or the pertinent question, is whether or not that has been happening. And by the facts that you've just given me about the destitute nature of how these people are living, it seems that they haven't adequately addressed that legal duty.
Especially after 80 years of mining diamonds, and there's so many diamonds in the world.
It's been factually proved that of those 80 years, 30 million carats of gem quality diamonds has been extracted from the 157 kilometer piece of mining strip they have on the Northern Cape's west coast. Now, I'm no mathematician, but with 1 to 3% of that, the Northern Cape should be looking as palatial as the first world countries where our diamonds are exported to.
Definitely.
Right? Unfortunately, we're still seeing dusty streets, and our people's health is adversely affected by the environmental carbon footprint that they have left there because of their mining excavations. So if we look at that, it seems like the state has been failing in the constitutionally and legislatively mandated duty to protect our people and to protect our people's interest in our stake of our natural resources. Right? And furthermore, and very important, the state has a duty to ensure that the holders of mining and production rights contribute towards the socio-economic situation of the areas in which their activities are based. So if your mining operation is based in Lekkersing or Komaggas or in Port Nolloth or in Alexander Bay, for example, then that community should bear fruits of it in development.
Yeah.
There should be sports fields, there should be universities, there should be great hospitals, you know. But as we both know, that is not the case. And that is unconstitutional, and that is unlawful, and there is no excuse why that is not happening.
Yes,
right?
there is no excuse.
So that's the legal ambit in what we're dealing with now. And then furthermore, to answer your question, whether it's a disadvantage or an advantage to our South African counterparts in the Northern Cape for De Beers leaving or actually disposing of the mining enterprise, the following should answer your question. It is now come to light that De Beers, in contrast to the current environmental management planning report, has now submitted to the Department of Mineral Resources a revised environmental mining planning report, which in the view and highly learned opinions of conservationists, geologists, as well as an array of other experts, the financial provision that they have made in the revised EPMR is definitely inadequate to rectify and to rehabilitate the environmental damage they've caused through mining, and also to adequately redress and hand back the socio-economic status to the people of the areas in which they've mined.
So it will be a disadvantage then?
Absolutely, it will be a disadvantage. And the reason that Macklaw is having this show today is to let the people in all the areas in the Northern Cape, Aggeneys, Komaggas, Lekkersing, Port Nolloth, as the case may be, let them know that we are aware of what's going on there in the rest of South Africa, and to give South Africa insightful information about what's going on there so that we can ignite public debate and ignite public interest and support our brothers and sisters in the Northern Cape. And we're going to personally, from Macklaw, we're going to put a duty on the Department of Mineral Resources and tell them, listen, we know what's before you, and we know that you have the power to endorse this revised EPMR or environmental mining planning report, but you need to adequately take into consideration the vast criticisms that has been placed and published out there by experts in relation to the aforesaid report, and before you endorse that, and if you endorse it without adequately addressing the necessary research that you have to take, we're going to hold you accountable for lacking in your constitutional duty, you know?
Yes,
and
definitely. Our people come first, that's the main thing.
Absolutely. And as the stakeholders of our natural resources, who the government of the day are only the custodians of, and yes, they must use it also to economically advance the country as a whole. Our GDP is also important. All of that. I understand jobs need to be created. It needs to be outweighed between that. But primarily, the people or the communities where those mining activities are taking place should be safe, and they should be adequately economically redressed.
Thank you, Riaan. Listening to you, I heard you speak about a lot of laws surrounding this topic.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, these people should know about these laws. So why hasn't these community members taken this to the authorities?
Well, you know, of course, everybody knows these laws. And it would seem that because of a lack of interest, people just don't care about the people in the Northern Cape. But that's not even necessary, because the people of the Northern Cape are a very proud nation, and they care about themselves, and they care about the environment, and they care about the upliftment of their people as well as their land. So in 1998, to be exact, the members of the Richtersveld, which is a municipal area within the Northern Cape, on the west coast also, has formed something called a Community Property Association. This Community Property Association was mandated by the people of the community to say, listen, no man, since 1920, De Beers has been mining on our land. Now, many decades later, they've been eating the profit of mineral resources, which our newly found constitution now just tells us that belongs to us actually. So we actually want to do a land claim, and which they successfully did. After almost 10 years later, in 2007, the Constitutional Court handed down judgment, which eventually led into a settlement agreement between a company called Alexco, which was state-owned, and the Community Property Association of the Richtersveld community in the Northern Cape. And the settlement agreement, through the hard work and resilience and persistence by an attorney, pro bono attorney from the Legal Resource Centre called Henk Smith, who was applauded by the court for his hard work, and he was approached by the leader, Willem Diergaard, to say, listen, we want our land back. And if you guys are not willing to give our land back, we're going to go to the court. And we're going to ask the Land Claims Court. And we're going to ask the Constitutional Court to give us our land back and all of the wealth that we've been extracting and stripping from our beautiful country since 1920. Eventually, the state, after a 50 million rand court battle, decided to settle with the CPA and then came to a settlement agreement where a lot of promises were made. And it was endorsed by the court. It was made a court order. They were told that they're going to give them 190 million rand, which would go to a community investment fund, 50 million rand in what the court termed as reparatory penalties to repair all of the damage that was done there. All of the farms in Alexander Bay was going to be handed back to the community. And all of those, which seemed so well equitable and fair and just, if you drive through the Richtersveld today, even 10 years later, after the settlement was made an order of court, it's barren. None of this beautiful, or almost none of this beautiful, is equitable and just and fair undertakings by the state and Elixco has been implemented. The people are still without farms, you know. The people are still living in destitute lives. So that's the thing, yeah.
Obviously, from where the money's coming from to where the money must go to, in the middle there's something happening.
You've hit the nail smack on the head. You see, I think the whole thing is tied up through bureaucracy, red tape, you know, and the whole concept or the whole intention of the court making that settlement agreement in order was so that money goes to the people, to the ground.
And that's why we are hitting this topic.
Absolutely. To make people aware and to show the people of the Richtersveld and the Northern Cape as a collective that we here at Mackworld care. And we want to thank the people of Aggeneys for inviting Mackworld over to them and lifting the shells from our eyes to actually see this destitute problem and prolonged and perpetual problem that our people are sitting when they are living literally on top of the richest part of the world.
The richest, and I didn't even know.
Yeah, you know. So it just shows that because of the ignorance, doesn't get the attention it deserves, and therefore it doesn't get the recourse legally and socially that it deserves. You know. So to the people of Aggeneys and the people of the Northern Cape, we care, and we're gonna hold the Department of Mineral Resources accountable for revising and actually approving or disapproving that new environmental mining planning report, which was given to the department from De Beers as an exit strategy from the West Coast mining area.
We thank Riaan van Wyk for being in studio and tackling this topic. It's a very sensitive topic. We are a land of riches, but the riches are being exploited, and here at Macklaw, we bring a lot of topics to light because it's not out there. So catch us next week on Macklaw. We're tackling more legal issues where you can help yourself.